All right, welcome back. So, we've already seen a few terminologies in Microsoft Excel. Initially, we also, had a brief orientation about the Excel interface. We talked about the grid area, we talked about the cells, we talked about the ribbon, the columns, the rows, the formula bar. We talked about what the workbook is. We talked about the add sheet button and the sheet controls where you can delete, rename, and also the zoom controls. We also talked about in the last video the active cell bar. So now we're talking about the Excel shortcuts, which helps to boost our productivity. So basically, Microsoft Excel offers quite a number of keyboard shortcuts. They are quite a lot, but I'm just going to mention a few that you will need to use often. So it offers, there are quite a number of them, like I said, but and the thing is, they're actually good to use. They are nice to have, knowledge. It increases your speed, efficiency, productivity, and mastering them can reduce the time you spend on routine tasks and help you navigate large spreadsheets with ease. The following slides will introduce you to some of the most essential shortcuts that every Excel user should know. So now, okay, like I said, this is not all, but these are like the major ones. So we have this one. It's called control plus arrow keys. Control plus arrow keys. Let's first deal with the navigation shortcut first of all. Control plus arrow keys. Now, arrow keys are on your keyboard. We have 4 of them. Just after your space bar, by the right, you have the arrow up, arrow bottom, arrow left, and arrow right. So, just going to your Excel sheet. Going to your Excel sheet, for instance. Okay, let's remove whatever we did here. Thank you. Thank you. Right now, so control and arrow key. When I would hold down control with my left hand holding control down, I now just have to tap on arrow forward and it takes me to the end of the entire worksheet. You would agree with me that, you know how long it takes us for us to scroll manually. For instance, let me start scrolling back. You know when I'm going to get back to, so literally it starts from A, B, C to Z, then it does AA to AZ, it does BA to BZ, CA to CZ, till ZA to ZZ. Then it starts with, I think AAA, AA to AAZ, then ABA to ABZ. It does that to AZZ. Then, it's quite a lot. Then it continues with BAA. It's I don't even know how many, columns are inside this worksheet. So imagine you also have to start going down. It could be so so exhausting, so draining. But with that shortcut, if when necessary, you could just take it down and then holding down the shift and pressing arrow back takes me back to where I'm coming from. Right, probably click here and I do the same thing. It works anywhere I click. If I also click arrow down, it takes me to the end. That is 1 million, over a million pages. Okay, right, over a million rows, rather, not pages, over a million rows. That's 1,048,576. Imagine us having to type 1, 2, 3, 4 till you get to the end. Without that shortcut, you probably will not even know how deep this is. So that shortcut helps you to, go deep and go far to see the length and breadth. And I could hold down that same shortcut and, shift and arrow up takes me back, arrow right takes me here, arrow down, I can see the extreme, and under this column XFD, and when I click here, you can see the active cell bar. Jesus Christ, XFD 1,048,550. That is that's the cell we have right now. So let's go back up. So that is the control plus arrow keys. It jumps to the edge of the data region. We also have the control plus F1. It toggles the ribbon display. So peradventure you for whatever reason you just want to close down this place so that you can have more space, you can just hold down control plus F1. F1 is at the top of your keyboard. The first row of your keyboard, they are all highlighted. After escape, you have F1. So you can see that once I click it, it closes it, and it looks nice. At least if I'm not doing any formatting or anything here, I think it kind of makes it looks less crowded, because those guys look so much like, what are all these? So you could just close and open. That is all right. That is the Control plus F1. We also have the Control plus Shift plus arrow keys. Control plus Shift plus arrow keys. So let me open in a different existing data that we are probably going to work on. Let me see. Okay, I need something that I don't have anything here. Let me open a data file here. Browse. All right, so I've opened a new file. This is obviously a new workbook, and if you notice, this workbook has various worksheets. So we're probably going to use this to learn later on. Now, if I click on this, for instance, and I want to, if I do just Control and arrow right, you can see that it takes me to the last active column on this. It takes me to the last active column on this worksheet. This is the last active column. All of these are just spillovers. You understand them later. They are, they just extended. But everything here, for instance, if I click on this place, you can see that all the whole array of text is inside here. But it's looking like it spans across Q, R, S, T, U, V, W. But trust me, everything is inside. If I click on Q3, Q2, you can see that it's empty. Q2 is empty. If I click on P2, everything is here. So the last active row is actually this P. So clicking on control and right jumps to the last. What have I done? All right, jumps to the last row. Okay, let me go to the top again. This one, it jumps to the last active column on that row, right? So let me also try doing control plus shift. Control plus shift now and arrow. It does not jump now. It highlights everything. It highlights it. So you can see that it's looking different. It's highlighted. If eventually I want to copy it or I want to edit it or something, I could just do it at once. And the same way, I could also click here and highlight downwards. So I'll hold Control and hold Shift with my left hand, 2 fingers, and then I just click on arrow down, and it highlights the whole cell, the whole worksheet, all the active rows. I think we have, how many thousands do I have here? This is like 2,534 that we just highlighted. So imagine me having to start to count them one after the other, such as something like I want to start highlighting them one after the other. You could have some data set that could be like 10,000 actually. So that could be a whole lot. So this shortcut helps me to. So I assume I just want to highlight everything. I will just do Control Shift and arrow down, and then arrow right, and that highlighted everything. All right. So that is another shortcut that you should know, highlighting. By the way, another shortcut, so that is probably like even a little more strenuous. Control Shift, arrow right, arrow down. You could just do Control and A, and that is a regular, but just do Control and A. It also highlights everything, right? So I will highlight that. Let me see again. Still under the navigation shortcut, we have I've talked about the Control and Shift. Then we have this Shift plus space bar. It select entire row. So let's go and try it out. Shift plus space bar. Let's see what we have. This is my active bar. Shift plus space bar. You can see it highlights the entire row. Let me click somewhere else in the middle and do the same thing. Shift plus space bar. It still highlights everything. So unlike, I could also do it from like this. Just that the only difference between Shift plus spacebar is, even if you are in the middle of the row, it still highlights everything from left to right. But if you use Control plus Shift plus arrow right or arrow left, it only highlights to the left. If I do Control plus Shift or arrow right, it only highlights to the right. But Shift plus spacebar highlights everything. I think that's actually more fancy. That is more useful, so that you don't have to necessarily always look for the edge before you highlight. Anywhere you are, you could just be on the row Z, row 500, column Z, and just do your Shift plus spacebar, and it still highlights everything. Take note that it only highlights a row. It doesn't highlight the column. It highlights a row and not the column. All right, now, so in the next video, we'll talk about the editing shortcuts. We just talked about the navigation shortcuts. Now we're going to be talking about the editing shortcuts. So see you in the next video.